I know I'm not. I know I'm not. But yes. Yes, ma'am. It might be my hobby research because but I want to make sure they do it right. No, I want to make sure they do it right. Like, wait, well, I did too. And I looked it up and it was the best. But then I had to look at the time and I said, okay, but still. I said, you know what? I know Dorothy Hutchinson's before I was born. I'm like, she's like, oh yeah, we were on the yes, but then I fill up my calendar for weeks, and I'm like, if you want to get with me, I'm about to do about 3 weeks. So does it cover range once fee, or is it cover like
Are we ready whenever? Yeah. Yep. Hi. We are.
Should I not? Because I'm going to be standing like right here.
He's right.
Or should I move it?
And I can move too, however. So.
Do I need to be up there? And that's what I was saying. What I like, Brandon? How you can you
Where do you want?
up there, Brandon? Because I'm up there.
Wherever she wants to. I can hold it. Yeah. You're fine. Do you want it to be? No, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. What's going on?
Oh, wait, but you can hear me?
I think it's going to be right in there.
One, two, three. You can hear me okay? Everyone, now I'm gonna need the front row. Settle down. Okay. I think I'm actually just gonna hold this in my hand. Good evening, good people. Good evening. Thank you for your patience. It's like construction out there somewhere. My name, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Donna Ray Pearson. I'm a local history person, or historian. For this whole side is like, yeah, this side, yeah, we know that. Okay, cool. Before I get started too far in tonight, first I want to give a shout out to our sponsors of this event. One is 785 Magazine. They are our virtual sponsors in handling all the technical stuff out there. Our other sponsor for this physical space is Arts Connect. So both of them are giving us their services for free. So they can shout out, donations to the magazine. Carissa's got a great community calendar. We will find information on there. So first, so again, like I said, I'm a historian, and historians have to tell history, right? Yeah. So I want to kind of pull this into context for us. I was speaking with someone not too long ago, and they were very excited about this event tonight. And as she was explaining why she was excited, I said, well, you realize this is like a women's club. And she's like, what? And it's like a colored women's club, like when they used to get together to educate each other. And that was, I'm going to get her name right, Josephine St. Perry Ruffin started one of the first ones in the 1890s, and that was in Boston, and it was called the Women's Era Club. She had two goals. First, to help African American people out of oppression and support them. But the second thing was for women to inform each other, to teach each other. As Annette said, collective learning is what we're doing tonight. So thank you all for coming out, and we're also going to thank our speakers, okay? So it is my personal hope that this will be a platform for all of us, any of us, to come together and learn information about us. And what's particularly important to me is it's Black women teaching Black women. So, and it's a sense of empowerment, and hopefully that you will take this out of the room when you go with you, this newfound information about one of the three women that we have tonight. So with that, if there's, who did I promise? I promised Rose. Oh, yes. Bring a friend, bring a daughter, bring a granddaughter next time. Okay. So with that, now I am, tell you the format for tonight. The format is your speaker will talk about 15 to 20 minutes about a particular woman, and then we will have 5 minutes for burning questions. What is a burning question? Something you just gotta know. Just gotta know before we go on to the next speaker, right? So you can hold that burning question or that question until the end of it. We will have a group discussion where we have all the questions at one time. Okay? So with that in mind, I want to introduce Dr. Tara James Wallace. She is a native of you said doctor? She is a native Topeka with deep roots in East Topeka, namely Pine Ridge. She attended Bellborough Elementary School and Robinson Elementary School before graduating from Topeka High. And Washburn University. She is a business owner and a nonprofit CEO who enjoys sharing her love for learning and creating with others. Please welcome
So I didn't know that the Women's Club was going to be part of this discussion because I've actually done some research. And one of the reasons that women created those clubs is because as Black women, they were dedicated to their families, their churches, and their community, but they had nothing for themselves. And so they decided to get together to talk and share. They would write, they would sing, they would cook, they would sew, they would give of themselves because they knew they were going to be receiving in that same space. So it's interesting that you would say that because we are literally doing the exact same thing that they did. So I am honored to be here. I chose someone that I did not know from the list of individuals intentionally. And Daisy and I were just talking, and I wholeheartedly believe that our ancestors have some movement in our lives today. The person that I chose because of the mask that she was wearing. I had to know what that was about. And I'm sorry to say that there's not a lot of history on this person. And that is intentional. Not because of her, but you'll find out. You'll find out. So the individual that I chose is Estrava Anastasia. And she was born in, let me back up because I'm not going to tell you, I'll show you what I found while I was researching this. This is what you're going to get. This is any image that you see of her. Paintings, figurines look just like this. There are not any pictures of her without the mask. So, I'm going to let you guys read. Her existence is said to be a myth. In spite of everything that I found, they still believe that she was a myth. Historic records, though, indicate that there was a child born fitting her physical description, and that she was actually a member of the royal family of the Langa of the Bantu tribe. Now, we all know what was happening back then, so how she ended up in Brazil, that's part of her story. And part of the things that are existing today that help people believe that she was not just a myth and not some person, some heroine that people created in order to help themselves. She was the daughter of royalty. Her mother was kidnapped and raped by her captor and then sold. She was conceived on the continent of Africa and traveled in her mother, basically, to Brazil. And that's where she was born. And records indicate that she was born, there was a child born March 5th with dark skin and striking blue eyes. Now, how rare is that to happen in Brazil? Extremely rare. So, for them to say that she didn't exist, well, we've got some records. We've got names attached to those records. So, popular stories say, and they're making her up to help themselves. I don't believe it. And that might be the deep dive that I take when it comes to doing research. So, she grew up to be this blue-eyed beauty, Amazonian in stature, and she was hated by the wives and daughters of the slave masters. And to punish her, they had her masked. She could only take this mask off for 1 hour a day to eat, and then she had to put it back on. In spite of all of this, she still was kind to everybody that she met. She helped children, she helped sick people, she helped everyone on the plantation. That was her reputation. So when she died, just before she died, she cured the son of the slave master and then told them that she forgave all of them. She died because of tetanus from the mask.
Wow.
So imagine living your entire life silenced, but still showing kindness to everybody around you, even though you're raped at will. Your children are taken from you at will. But she never, there's not a single story, I could not find a single story that said anything negative about her, ever, anywhere. So, when she died, she was freed, basically, by her master, and then buried in a slave cemetery in Rio. And this is what tells me further proof that she was a person. She actually existed because she impacted so many lives. Her remains were then placed in the Church of Rosario. Fire. And that's how her remains were lost. And so, as recently as 1987, people have been trying to get her canonized, make her a saint. She was a saint walking on earth, basically, to live through everything that she did and not treat anyone as cruelly as she was treated, to help the sick, all of these things. But because there is no physical proof, the Catholic Church says that she cannot be canonized. But there are paintings that were existing in the church. You don't just hang a painting of any random person in the church. That's further proof. The other thing that carries into, go to the next one. The other thing that carries into this is how she was treated and who's behind it. Present day things that I saw when researching her story, she thrived against horrible conditions. If you look at the pictures, I don't know if you can see this middle one, it has the mask, but it also has some rusting around it on the outside. She had tetanus from the iron, so what do you think her skin was like around that area? And it was around her neck as well. Mm-hmm. She was muzzled to silence her voice and her beauty, but her beauty wasn't just external. It was internal. She touched people's lives. So there's no way that just because you masked her, she was masked very young, but look how far her story has carried. And I don't know if you saw on the previous slide, 28 million people follow her. 28 million people. And then, can you go back to the previous one?
Oops. No, I'm not technically able. That's me.
Here you go. It's okay, I got it right here. I can look at it too. One of the things that really, really struck me was that her legend challenged the systems of power that are trying to keep her silent even today. The Catholic Church said she did not exist, so we're not canonizing her. But the Catholic Church canonized someone that there was proof they did not exist. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you about systems of power that are still operating? I mean, her remains were buried. Her remains were brought to the church. There are pictures of her, pictures of her in the church. And afterwards, they removed all of her pictures from the church. In an attempt to keep her silent. Still, you can't silence 28 million people. You cannot silence 28 million people. I don't care how hard you try. So, okay. I am the silence that is incomprehensible, and the idea whose remembrance is frequent. I am the hearing which is attainable to everyone, and the speech which cannot be grasped. I am the one below, and they come up to me. I am the mute who does not speak, and great is my multitude of words. And that, by the way, escrava means slave. And that is how, if you search, that's how you're going to find her. The slave, Anastasia. Are there any burning questions? I saw a hand.
No, question, but my thing is, like, if you're going to hide her beauty, the first thing you would think that they would cover would be her eyes. Because they're so blue. Because, I mean, even though you have this mask on, her eyes are still going to draw people in.
I think that's the irrationality of power that just doesn't make sense, but I gotta do something right now.
How old was she when she passed?
We don't know. They have completely erased as much as they can of her to say that her story is passed down through oral history. But the fact that you have bones, you have paintings, and all of these things,
Could she read and write? Or
Absolutely.
communicate?
all of that.
That's amazing, especially in that time, if she could read and write. And that was not something. Does it say who taught her?
More than likely her mother. Her mother was royalty, so.
So did she have children?
She did.
Okay.
She did. But,
Of course, they were sold off. So,
yeah. I was frustrated, but I was also encouraged to see that 28 million people recognize the kind of woman that she was. The whole irony of it, yes.
Do they basically give her, I know the church doesn't give her sainthood, but do they worship her as a saint?
Yes, yes, yes. She has a very strong following in Africa, in Brazil. There's 3 different churches, but yes, absolutely.
I was just thinking when Angel had said what she said, maybe they didn't cover her eyes up because they needed her to work. You know, and she still was making, she was still making money for them. So you can cover up her mouth, but we need your hands available because we don't profit off of you.
And they
You know what I'm saying?
And they did because she cured her sick.
And I just wanted to ask you, like, what do you feel from researching her was most impactful, and how did it change you from learning about her?
It's saddened me that this is still happening, but it's happening in subtle ways to Black women. Still, I mean, I'm literally dealing with situations that involve this very thing, and it breaks my heart that this is still happening, but I'm also encouraged by the fact, like I said, that 28 million people are still talking about her. 28 million and one are still talking about her because her ministry, her kindness, even to people that were cruel to her, to cure your slave owner's child, and then say, I forgive you, I forgive your wife, I forgive your daughters, I forgive everybody in your household that mistreated me, and then die.
Yeah.
It's powerful. That's powerful.
Very.
Couldn't that just be a part of the Lord to make them feel better?
Probably. Probably. But
She may not have said that. They may just have been attributed it because how was she talking if she had a mask?
right, and considering that she had tetanus here, all of this was impacted by that. That's a good point. That's a very good point. And I think you might be right to make themselves feel better. But at the end of the day, she had nothing to say. She didn't need to say anything. She never mistreated anybody. Like I said, none of the stories that I was able to find said anything negative about her. None. Which is powerful considering that she walked around with this mask on and this collar.
It's almost like she didn't need to speak because her life spoke so much. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I hate to be the cynic in the room.
No, okay, let's go.
I hate to be the cynic in the room. But this feels like that quote from Zora Neale Hurston. If you don't yell while they're torturing you to death,
They'll say that you enjoyed it.
and it's like, maybe she, like, right, and then I spent time in Brazil and Rio, so, I don't know if, has anyone else been to Rio? Okay, so they are very connected to the African slave trade. They know in their national museum, there's like big, like, our places in South America, like they're saying, like our places in South America, our soul is in Africa, right? So they're very aware of like the history of the slave trade and stuff. So, and my mom was a museum, like, person, curator. Not curator, she did everything in the museum. That's what her graduate degree. My sister is a public historian, and that's what her PhD is in too. And my little sister is an archivist. So some of and I've gone to the museums in Brazil, so it just doesn't, some of it doesn't make, like, they document a lot, and the Catholic Church documents, like, they produce documents on documents. But then I know that Brazil has horrible problems with cataloging, and they just lost their National Museum warehouse, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it burned up. So there could be, and they just have trouble with like registration of their stuff. So there could be proof somewhere, and it either burned up to it, or they just haven't found it yet. So I don't know, like, I think it's interesting, but
I feel like they don't want to find it, because if you canonize someone who clearly does not exist, there is nothing that says that individual exists, but they were canonized. It's almost
I mean, but that's part of what history is. That's part of the problem with history. For so many years, it's only been told from a certain perspective. Right. It's really hard to believe that something else could exist or that there's another way. So, yes, if she's bleeding from mainstream data, I can understand. You're right, and you are right to question history. Because, as we all know, as you've seen different things, it's not all accurate. But this is the information that we have right now, and this is the story that we have. But yes, always question things that happen.
Saint Juan Diego did not exist, but was canonized.
Okay, I got one burning question, and then we're going to go.
Burning my hand. So speaking of Brazil, I've been to Brazil. So first of all, I read that in Brazil on May 15th, they celebrate Estrela Anastasia as a saint, okay? With some Afro-Brazilian religions. And in Brazil, Nossa Senhora, our woman, our mother, is black.
Mhm.
All of the saints, or the major saint in Brazil is a black woman. So, we don't have that here.
All right, our next presenter is Angel Jordan. She was born and raised in Topeka, and she is an active mom and grandmother who enjoys reading and listening to audiobooks. She's an excellent tea-stuffer. She loves food and wine and learning the history of people, places, and things. So please welcome Angel. Woo!
Turn that PowerPoint off, maybe. You don't have a PowerPoint, do you?
I don't.
Can we turn the PowerPoint off? Okay. Look at the blue halo.
It is
Nice.
nice.
I mean, unless it adds to your presentation.
Sure.
The next blue. Yeah, she told me. All right, so I don't have a PowerPoint, I do have notes. So I might periodically lay this down. So my first thing is Asada Shakur. I also picked her because I've heard her name, but I didn't really know too much about her. I just knew that she was revolutionary. She was about the revolution. That's all I knew. I found out she had an autobiography Monday. So we spent the past few days doing speed reading her autobiography. But if you were to Google her, you'll find out that she's a political activist. You'll find out that she's an author. She has an autobiography called Asada. She's also a poet. I did find that out as I was reading her autobiography. Member of the Black Panther Party. Member of the Black Liberation Army. You will also find out, if you're Googling on Wikipedia, that she was a bank robber, kidnapper, and a murderer, according to the FBI.
It's like history.
Yes. That's their history. However, after reading her autobiography and doing some more further research and numerous videos, there is no evidence of her birth. There's no birth records. According to the FBI and her most wanted poster, she was born July 16, 1947. However, in parentheses on her most wanted poster, it says not substantiated by birth records because they couldn't find any. And even in her autobiography, she starts out, well, this is what the FBI says. However, I was born. And I noticed that throughout her autobiography, she doesn't have a whole lot of dates. The only dates that she, includes in her autobiography are just when it comes to the different court cases that she was dragged into. However, July 16, 1947, Jamaica, Queens, New York. Her birth name, or as she would say, her slave name, is Joanne Deborah Byron. She did get married, so her last name was at one point Chesmard. She grew up with her mother and her aunt. She would also later, or in summer, she would go visit her grandparents in Wilmington, North Carolina. Her grandparents had a pretty big influence on her childhood, because of course she grew up, during the Jim Crow era. Her grandparents instilled in her a sense of dignity, especially in regards to white people. You're as good as anyone else. Don't let anyone tell you that they are better than you. She was forbidden to say yes, ma'am, or yes, sir, or to look down at her shoes, or to make any subservient gestures when talking to white people. You look them in the eye when you talk to them, and speak up like you got some sense. She was told to speak in a loud, clear voice and to hold her head up high or risk having it knocked off her shoulders. The name that we know her by is Assata Shakur. Assata Olubala Shakur. The name Assata means she who struggles. Olubala means love for the people. And then the name Shakur came from one of her fellow actually he was in the Black Panther Party, which I'll talk about later. She got the last name of respect for him and his family. However, the name Shakur means the thankful. Although through experiencing racism during her childhood, she did not become radicalized until her late teens. After she dropped out of high school, she moved in with her Aunt Evelyn, who helped her get her GED. She later attended Manhattan Community College, and later City College of New York. During her time at MCC, she made friends with many African students. And in a discussion, according to her autobiography, during a discussion about the Vietnam War, she thought that she entered in this discussion thinking that she had a lot of knowledge. And she found out the more she talked, she didn't know anything about communism, the Vietnam War, she knew nothing. However, that conversation changed her life. She says in her autobiography, "I never forgot that day. We're taught at such an early age to be against the communists, yet most of us don't have the faintest idea of what communism is. Only a fool lets somebody else tell them who their enemy is." After that, while she was still in college, she became active in different organizations, including the Garveyettes and the Republic of New Africa. And I found out, which you don't know, in her autobiography, when she was with the Republic of New Africa, they actually gave her a different name. That's okay. But they gave her a different name, and she was like, she didn't really like it. But she knew that she had changed. She wasn't the same person that grew up, in New York with her mom and her aunt, and the same person that grew up in the South with her grandparents. So that's when she changed her name to Assata. In the late 60s, she did join the Black Panther Party. And during that time with the Black Panther Party, which was brief, she always revered their message because they made it clear who the enemy was, and it wasn't white people, but the capitalistic, imperialistic oppressors. However, she left them because they were not open to criticism. This was during the time when they started turning on each other, when the government started kind of targeting certain members, and she was trying to, maybe we can do this, we can do that, and change this. They weren't really trying to hear it. And she says, as she's leaving, constructive criticism and self-criticism are extremely important for any revolutionary organization. Without them, people tend to drown in their mistakes. Once the Black Panther Party, once they kind of disbanded, she became a member of the Black Liberation Party, Black Liberation Army in 1970. The BLA is not an organization. It goes beyond that. This is also a quote from her. It is a concept, a people's movement, an idea. The idea of a Black Liberation Army emerged from conditions in Black communities, conditions of poverty, indecent housing, massive unemployment, poor medical care, and inferior education. She goes on to say, the concept of the BLA rose because of the political, social, and economic oppression of Black people in this country. And where there is oppression, there will be resistance. From 1971 to 1973, she was accused of a number of crimes. So that's where the bank robberies came in. She was an armed robber. She kidnapped a drug dealer. And she attempted to murder a policeman. Of course, throughout that time, she would be acquitted or the charges would be dropped after much fight. Now, her Aunt Evelyn eventually became a lawyer and became her lawyer. So she played a main factor in all the different court cases, including the big one. On May 2nd, 1973, while traveling on the New Jersey Turnpike with Zaid Shakur and Sundiata Akoli, They were pulled over by 2 New Jersey state troopers. You don't know why? Never put a tail light. Isn't that like typical? They had a broken tail light. Of course, during the back and forth, a shootout ensued that led to the death of Zaid and then one of the state troopers. His name was Werner Forster. Now thankfully, I'm glad I found her book because there's conflicting stories, but in her book, I'm going to go with her testimony. She says her account is she was shot twice with her hands up. They were kind of going back and forth because the other gentleman fled. Sandiata fled. Zaid died. She, of course, couldn't. And they were trying to do what should we do? Finish her off. Is there a gun? Because they also, got to come up with a story. She was shot twice. I know one of the shots was in her back, and one was on her arms, where basically it was kind of paralyzed. That becomes important later. She was taken to the hospital. The ambulance finally came. During her time in the hospital, she was interrogated. She was chained to her hospital bed. They threatened her, they taunted her, they pulled a gun on her. They tried to get her to confess. You name it, she went through it. They even charged her. They even, after so many days in the hospital, they even had a judge come in and court officials come in and read down the charges that they were giving her for this incident on May 2nd. In 1977, they found her guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 30 life plus 30 years. Now, there were, of course, other cases leading up to that. And just like I said, her Aunt Evelyn was her attorney. And she had a couple others that would kind of help. And there were a couple times where she represented herself as co-counsel. I'll say that. Because her aunt said, yeah, you don't know that. So you can be my co-counsel. And there were a couple times she did deliver like the opening statement. And in a lot of those cases it didn't. Of course, she was acquitted. And of course, the charges were dropped. They had judges had to be removed, juries that they kind of had dismissed because they were prejudiced. It was a number of things. She kind of goes in depth, like her treatment while she was in prison during the time that she was going through the different charges and having to go to court for the different things. And her condition, the conditions of the jail that she was in, there were a few times where she was jailed in a men's prison in solitary confinement. But the miscarriage of justice for this particular case, at least 2 of the jurors expressed prejudice before the start of the trial. So they openly said, well, yeah, I've been watching some of the news, I've seen the newspaper, and yeah, I think she's guilty. So I'm probably going to assume she's guilty. That's what the paper said, that's what the news said. 5 of the 15 jurors were close friends or relatives of New Jersey state troopers. So they were already biased because you killed one of our fellow troopers. And then the other state trooper that stopped them testified that he did actually lie in his official report. And he also lied during his grand jury testimony. However, they still convicted her. Again, she spends time in jail prior to the conviction in facilities with horrible conditions, held in a prison in solitary confinement for months under 24-hour surveillance. She's beaten, given less than adequate medical care. She also became pregnant. And there's a story. I'll let y'all read it. But she did become pregnant while she was in prison. And she tried to hint to the prison doctor, hey, just kind of give him hints. And he caught on, you're probably just constipated. Oh, no, it's probably this. It's probably your digestive system. It's probably this. So he lied about her diagnosis several times and then refused any type of support, which is probably just an abortion. However, she was fortunate enough. Her aunt came in and collected and was able to find a black doctor. However, he was only able to see her if there was another doctor present, but he fought for her to, and they were going to try to have her delivered they weren't even able to hospital and deliver baby, but she was able to do so. On November 2nd, 1979, she escaped from prison after her conviction. So about 2 years after she was convicted. It began with 3 of her BLA members. They posed as prison visitors. They drew 45 pistols and took 2 correction officers hostage at the Clinton Correctional Facility where she was. They seized a prison van and used it to flee the correctional facility with Shakur. And then once outside the federal prison, they switched vehicles and made their getaway. And they did let the hostages, they released them and they lived. She remained underground for about 5 years after she escaped. She eventually fled to Cuba in 1984, where she received political asylum. That's where she currently resides. On May 2nd, though, 2013, about 40 years after on the anniversary of the incident on the turnpike, they made, she became the first woman to ever make the FBI's most wanted terrorist list. And the current reward is $2 million. I will say, there's a video on YouTube where because I guess John Pope II, this is like in the 80s, was making a trip there, and they don't have the extradition, and they were trying to see if he could convince the government in Cuba, hey, can y'all, talk them into maybe bringing her back or, releasing her, transferring her back, and he did. He wrote a letter, but she had a response, kind of detailing everything that happened, and that, I think there has been some communication with the United States and Cuba. However, I find it amazing that there's this $2 million reward on her head, and no one has turned her in. No one in Cuba has turned her in. She has her daughter. Her mother raised her daughter, by the way. They've been able to visit. She hasn't come back. She probably won't come back because she knows as soon as she steps foot on U.S. soil, they're going to try to take her in or take her out. Either way. Any questions?
That's not Tupac's mom?
It's not.
Oh,
Finish it for us.
oh, okay. Sorry.
Now, they knew each other. They're not related. They did know each other. As a matter of fact, according to her autobiography, Afeni Shakur served as a legal assistant on one of her court cases.
Oh.
And then, of course, they hooked up again when they were part of the Black Panther Party.
I mean, okay. I'm just wondering, okay, did she have a gun when this all happened? That she got shot twice?
No. And see, and that was another thing.
I mean,
there was medical evidence that she couldn't have shot him because
Her arms were up.
her arm was up, and then you shot her. You shot in the arm that she probably would have used to shoot him.
Okay.
So, any other questions? Comments? Concerns?
So she's still alive.
Yeah, she's 75 years old. Still in Cuba.
I think she's gonna come back if she gets a terminal illness, so her family could get that number. That's what I would do. When I'm like close to death, I would do that.
Oh, like right before you'd be like, turn me in, turn me in. I want a good party when I go.
And if she's really sick, the government isn't gonna pay because they have healthcare standards in prison. They're not gonna pay, they're just gonna let her go.
I don't know. Because the reward wasn't that high at first. Because when they originally put her on, I think it might have been so many thousand, then it went up to $1 million, and then with the 40-year anniversary, they doubled it. Because I think the FBI and the state of New Jersey added the additional $1 million. That's how bad they want her.
So I have 2 questions. So the first thing, I think you kind of hinted it. What did you feel about her romantic relationships in her life?
With her husband, they decided that she wasn't ready for marriage because she was so focused on the movement. And so, he was used to what his parents, okay, the husband goes out, he provides, and, my mom, she stayed at home and she, did the housework. She did the housewife thing. She was like, nothing's going to be accomplished with me sitting in the house. So she was, studying, she was doing her research, she was, out. So they decided they were better as friends, part ways. So it was an amicable breakup. And then the gentleman that she had her who fathered her child. That was kind of weird, but it's her account. So he was being tried with her during one of the course. I think this was maybe, of course, they're good friends, so they knew each other from the movement, and so they're, talking, and of course they get closer as time goes on, and then they talk about more intimate things, and then like, what if you get pregnant? She was like, well, I really didn't want to have any kids, but then, if I have a child, this could be, the new generation. She kind of started thinking about all these good things, that, how to bring a new life into the world and all the hopes and dreams. And so when she realized she was pregnant, but yeah, she just, I don't think she really, during her younger years, there was guys, of course, that she had crushes on, but she had a couple traumatic experiences where she was just kind of down.
Is her, oh my bad.
Good.
Is her child what's his story? Is he around? Is he?
She is. She lives in her name is Kakuya. She is still around. She does talk about the fact that she can't come back because she has children. So she's not able to come back and see her grandchildren. However, at the end of her book, she talks about how, one of the first that they came to visit, when they realized, she finally called her aunt, after time had passed. Now, she kind of had to go through this little, because of course, when she escaped, her family kind of went through, they harassed them, they were, bugging their houses, their phones, followed them, leaving notes, trying to trick them, because her aunt was like, well, how do I know it's you? Because she was wondering why her aunt was so cold, but she called, like, it's me. How do I know it's you? Tell me something that I don't know. Oh, yeah, I don't know. And so she kind of gave her this phrase that she used to say to her when she would tease her. And so then, of course, she said, oh my God, it's you. She told them where she was. She called her mom, talked to her daughter, and then they were able to, once her daughter was able to get a passport, to come and visit her.
So there was a question online from Anna, and she wanted to know what evidence is there that she is still alive?
She's still, like I said, there's numerous YouTube videos, different interviews that she does that are online.
Are there date stamps or time? Do you know? Like, we know for sure this date she was alive, but any current evidence? Or I'm just curious.
There's some. There's one. I think the source has one. There's another one, like a news thing, news place called Document Now or something like that. So they can go look online and they'll see those videos.
My second part was, did you have the opportunity to read about her? I believe she wrote an essay about intersectionality and feminism.
I did not. I was speed reading the autobiography.
Do you have any opinions where you thought she leaned from her autobiography?
Right, what's that?
Where do you think she leaned from her autobiography when it came to intersectionality and feminism?
I don't think she didn't really talk about feminism. It was really more about Black people in general. She also goes into, because she thought that, maybe it would be good if they joined, forces with, Hispanics, Native Americans, and Asians. Because she's, once she got to the West Coast, because she's still on the East Coast, when she went to the West Coast, she spent time looking for representatives from those different groups. So she didn't really talk about women, or her main focus wasn't about women, it was really Black people, the oppression of Black people, and what can we do to solve that, to work on that. So, but I will, you have to send that to me so I can. Yes.
So when she found out was of a group, was she in the BLA or was she still with the Black Panther Party? That's something the Black Panther Party does, and most people don't know. Like, they sought out other oppressed groups, even white people in Appalachia. They had a coalition.
I'm trying to think. This would have been right around the time that she did join the Black Panther Party, because she talked to the members and then she ended up joining when she went back to New York. She ended up joining the New York one. But it was kind of around that same time, because someone said, maybe you should talk to the Black Panther Party. And so she talked to them while she was still in the West, on the West Coast, and then joined the New York
Annette is a long time Tahitian with Kentucky Jones roots. And she will explain that because they kept me up at 3 o'clock this morning. A retired nurse and now a poet to her core, she adores all the arts and believes in art's power to empower and heal. Please welcome Annette.
Yeah, Sam would be great. Yes. With Kentucky Jones roots, my mother and her 12 siblings and parents were from Kentucky, and Jones was her maiden name. She was always very concerned that Jones, the name Jones, remained in our lineage. So I'm from the Kentucky Jones. If I were the woman I'm going to speak about tonight, I would say bonsoir. Good evening, my friends. I want to talk tonight about Saria Bonali. And when we think of Black women in figure skating, we think maybe of Debbie Thomas, who was a bronze Olympian in 1988. We may think about Gabby Douglas, who was a 3-time Olympic gold medalist. Simone Biles, of course, who has 7 Olympic gold medals and is the most winning gymnast in American history. So when I saw Soraya Bonali's name, it was not familiar to me at all. And the more I researched her, the more I realized it really should have been. She was born December 15th, 1973 in Nice, France. She was placed in an orphanage by her mother, and at 8 months of age, she was adopted by a white French couple. Her mother was a physical education teacher, and her father was an architect. Her parents had originally planned to adopt a child from India, but when Soraya became available, they rushed at the chance to get her. They did give her a name from India, Soraya, which is Sanskrit for the sun. The Soraya's mother loved all sports, where she was a physical education teacher, so she had such a passion for sports that she wanted to expose Soraya to as many sports as possible. So she had lessons in fencing, where she beats all the boys, ballet, diving, and tumbling, which she was very, very good at, and was a childhood gymnast champion. But the sport that she came to love the most was figure skating. And I love to watch figure skating. I think it's one of the most beautiful sports there are. So as her mother was teaching older children how to ice skate, she finally found some double-bladed skates for Soraya at the age of 2 years old. And her goal was to keep Soraya busy skating on those double skates while she taught the older kids. And she really loved figure skating. And her background in tumbling really made her an even better skater because she was not afraid to leave the ground as a tumbler. When she was 11, she happened to be seen by a professional ice skating coach by the name of Coach Didier. And he convinced Soraya's parents to move to Paris after he had seen Soraya skate because Soraya was so impressive that he thought, if you move to Paris, I could coach you full time. So they did move to Paris, but they were so unprepared for the move that they actually lived in their van for a couple of years. But it still provided Soraya an opportunity to be really coached on a professional level. One of the things that Coach Didier was impressed by was he thought Soraya, even at the age of 11, was quite a fighter. And he said, France has no fighters in ice skating, so we need her. As she began to skate and to compete, she ran into an obstacle. And that obstacle was the judges. The judges were not used to a black skater, and the judge's opinion about what an ice skater should be would be some young lady who's very prim, very proper, and her ideal was that an ice skater should be like an ice princess. And ice princesses are tiny and white and thin. And Soraya was anything but that. Number one, she was very strong, very real, but also strong, having spent all that time learning how to tumble. The other thing that the judges didn't approve of was her costume, her outfits. Soraya was very impressed with FloJo and wanted costumes just as impressive as what FloJo wore. And the judges wanted something much more appropriate, much more delicate and down the middle. And the judges said that Soraya was not graceful enough. Because she was a tumbler, she was used to doing an exercise and then going to the next exercise and then the next exercise. But what the judges wanted to see within her program was this fluidity. So Soraya said, okay, I'll work on my artistry. And her challenge at that time was to increase her artistry, but also come across as a strong black woman, which the judges also weren't prepared or willing to see. Scott Hamilton, another famous ice skater, said that one of her issues was the interruptions that she had between her jumps, between her elements, and that was something that she really had to work on. The press was also quite another barrier for her, and they used what we call coded language. They described Soraya as exotic, or mysterious, or striking. And Soraya wanted to comply and be more artistic, but she realized that she would never fit in the ice skating world. But her strategy was, okay, I will increase the difficulty of the jumps, the turns that I used to spend 72. And she realized that black athletes had to be more than good, that excellence was actually the bottom line. She had to be even better than excellent. The press and the public was just not satisfied with the truth of her story and her upbringing. So someone made up a story that she was found abandoned on a beach on an island of Madagascar, and she was almost buried beneath coconut shells, because the fact that she was just a beautiful, athletic black woman was not enough for them. And what she found out later on was it was actually her coach Didier, who had concocted this story, because he thought this dramatic story would increase the attention around her and might invoke sympathy in the judges to increase her scores. So when she found out that he was actually the person that was spreading the story, and that her true story was not enough, she and Coach Didier parted ways. And her mother became her coach. Some of the highlights of Soraya's career was in 1994, she won a silver behind Sato of Japan. And in 94, in the Olympics, she actually placed fourth behind Nancy Kerrigan, Oksana Bainu, I believe, and Tanya, I want to say Harding. Yes. So she placed twice. At one of her competitions, I think it was a world competition, she actually won a silver medal. But she was so convinced that she truly should have been first, that during the medal ceremony, she refused to stand on the podium. Mm-hmm. And once they put her silver medal on, she took it off. And of course that was interpreted as being poor sportsmanship and unfairness. But she realized that in her soul, she knew that she had earned and deserved first in the competition. In the 98 Olympics in Nagano, Japan, she realized that her performances that evening was not going to earn her a medal. So she made a decision, she made a statement, and she did a backflip landing on one skate. And the backflip had been banned in 1976 because of its inherent danger for injuries. And of course the judges didn't like that, and she wound up placing 10th. The audience went wild, and so she left professional skating at that point, but she left with a statement. And although she said, I felt like I lost, but I lost in my own way. To this date, no other Olympic skater, man, woman, has been able to land that backflip on one skate. Some takeaways. Like I said before, I think that figure skating is one of the most beautiful and powerful sports there is, but I'm also impressed by the courage that those skaters display and their athleticism. Some of the things that Soraya has said is that win or lose, it does not change the person that I am. And she said, don't wait for a medal to make a change in your life. And she also said, black girls can skate too. She said, a medal is nice, but it's superficial. In her lifetime, she was a 3-time world champion silver medalist. She was a 5-time European champion. She was a 9-time French national champion. In 2004, she became a U.S. citizen, and she currently lives in Las Vegas, where she does ice skating coaching, and she's also a motivational speaker. There's also a program that features her on Netflix, and the name of the series of the program is called Losers. But it documents people who maybe initially seen as losers, but it talks about the victories in their lives. So it's on Netflix, it's called Losers, and she is the 3rd episode in. And one of the things that struck me most about learning about her was the fact that her life encouraged me to look at attempts as closely as I do victories, because oftentimes you've got the win column and you've got the loss column. But to try is a victory in and of itself, too. Question?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I was growing up when Shirley was skating, and what I feel right now and what I felt back then as a young child was just angry. I was just angry because I saw her skate, and she clearly skated better than everybody else, and they wouldn't give her not one thing. And that's the reason why I don't watch figure skating today. There's just, and professional basketball too. Anyway, it just, I feel you tell the story, and I'm like, yep, I remember that, and shame on them, and good for her for being forced to take the high road. But it just chaps my ass the way that some lighter skinned people in our world take it upon themselves to determine what is beauty, what is grace, right? And they could not deny how good she was. But they had to say something.
Yes.
You couldn't have a black person be the best in the world. Right? Yeah. And I thought Tiger Woods in golf. Yeah. When we had a black hockey skater, oh, there they go again. There they go again. Yeah, so.
Can't do country music, see?
Yeah. Can't do country music.
Oh, yeah. What's left?
Don't get me started.
Also, she was so athletic. I mean, I remember that she had these beautiful legs.
Yes.
But of course, that was powerful legs, which goes on a whole other thing. When Layla Ali did Dancing with the Stars, no, she was too athletic. I thought she was gorgeous, but no, she.
You know what else? Tanya Harding. When they were together, Tanya Harding was athletic as well, as athletic looking as Shirley, and who came ahead of who?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you for sharing all that. I remember back in the day too. But I also know what Hollywood does, and I also know what people who are trying to get their talent to be recognized and accepted all over the world, they create stories. They have to do the PR work to get the world to embrace you. And they did that with the Myrna Loys of the world. They did that with the Dorothy Dandridges of the world. They did that with a lot of women, but it was usually a lot of white men behind it who were creating the story. Even Joan Crawford, she wasn't really what she was. She was a completely made-up persona. And it was all of the imaginary which created this buzz around her, this celebrity status around her. And so I think that Coach Didier was trying to copy that same playbook because she was kind of an outsider trying to step into a world that she was going to be the first in because, you know, she got the body type, you know, I got that body type too. So all of us do. And so it was just interesting that that's kind of like what they think is, we don't always want it. It's not something that we think is necessary, but that particular faction does. And and I think it still goes on today. But they were doing that clear back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. I just want to make a comment.
And I think that's an interesting thread that runs through all these stories. There's a system, a structure impacting these women's lives. And in some, right now I'm not finding the good in the systems or structure. I'm sure someone can help me with that, and I'm going to ask that question. And if we can't find the good in it, when it happened to them, how can we make that, how can we use those systems and structures to our advantage today? So that's a question. Feel free to answer. Now we're at the open discussion part. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
The only thing I was gonna say what you said, but it's exhausting thinking about the obstacles that these women face, and it's frustrating. I'm like, and then even when you talked about the women's groups and how we would meet to, as a comfort almost to each other, and I'm just like, man, when do we get a break? When do we not have to fight harder? Yeah. And it's never, and so it's like, okay, well then how?
I don't know if it's never. I think it's, me personally, is I take it now. Which is the difference from when I was 25, 35, 40. I just take it. I mean, y'all, if you follow me on Facebook, you're going to be like, well, where is she now? I'll be gone next week too, by the way, because I'm ready for that break. And I think as you get older, you learn that they are not going to give it to you. And that you just have to figure out and create space and time for yourself. So hopefully, something like this is creating space and time for yourself. Tamika?
I'm going to try to answer the question too, just piggybacking off of what this young lady said. Because I feel the frustration, I feel the pain, I feel the sadness of the stories. But I do feel like, regardless, we know, and history shows us that they will try to make up stories about us, and it's important for us to say our own stories, to write our own books, to make sure that we have a say. I think it's admirable of you to bring us together, to start this women's group when you saw, when you just looked like, I don't know about these black names on here, to do that. Because I feel like this is one of the ways that we can come together and empower each other, because even with that being done, I feel like there's been a break even within the black community, even within the black woman in Topeka, where there's like silos, and cliques, where we don't come together. And I mean, if we understood the power that we have as women, and the power that every other group tries to take away from us, we wouldn't care about all the other stuff. And so I thank you for doing this, and I hope that we can grow together as a group and that we can support one another and get our stores out there and build each other up, so.
Other thoughts swirling around your head? Do you want to get help before the night is over? No? Look at y'all. Y'all feeling good.
No, I did miss one question online. If it's okay, this would be for Annette. The question was, is what connection, if any, do you have? Sorry, who the lady you presented?
The connection for me is just the desire to do something beautiful in the world, and to do that against seemingly insurmountable odds. For me, I'm not going to be ice skating anytime soon, but I might write a poem or two that brings about that same kind of connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, I hope tonight you heard a good story or two and that you can take that home and meditate on it. I am going to take a PR moment for the group. We are scheduled pretty much almost to the end of the year, but we're not quite there yet. December, and I think you need a friend in November, right, Kay? I think so.
Yeah, I was going to do it in October, but it was my birthday weekend, so I'm wanting to change it to November.
Right, so we still have a couple of slots open for the rest of the year, and I'm calling it the list. If you found us on Facebook in the group, there is a pinned post called the list. That is a list that, well, it started out with 52 names that I could not say all of who they were. And I have since added more names that I cannot say who all they were. So hopefully you will look at the, if you have not already signed up, I feel like a lot of people in this room have already done that. But just in case for those of you online. Or maybe you have a friend. We're not done yet. Let's go ahead and finish out this year and learn some more. All right? Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry.
Announcement,
Yes.
this is a commercial, so.
Oh, it's a commercial. I do commercials.
Yeah, okay, so, Topeka Lumley Chapter Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, we are, if I can pull it up. You gonna do that too? Oh, that's right, 'cause this, you know what? I'm gonna let it be on the road because that is her wheelhouse. Okay. She knows what's coming. Okay, well, we are doing our annual health forum, and it's on maternal health, and it is April 13th, starting at 10:30, and it's at Post Center. And I'm gonna let her talk because she knows what she's talking about. Okay. I'm just a member, but she knows what she's talking about.
Yes. Okay. So, I am Adriana Markham. The whole thing or just that? That works. CEO of Executive Director of Topeka Doodle Project. April 11th through April 17th is Black Maternal Health Week. So that is when everybody around here tries to shine a light on Black maternal health. Nothing has been done here in Topeka since I've been an adult. So I took it upon myself to create 2 events and partnering with Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So April 11th, we will be doing a Black motherhood conversation. So picking back up what Tamika said, and my goal is to bring Black women to the conversation. The event is called Come In Sis, because I need everybody to come in, no matter how old you are, if you are a mother, or if you have a Black mother, I'm welcoming everybody into this conversation, because we should be talking about Black motherhood in our community and what that looks like for us here in Shawnee County. And then the second event will be April 13th at Stormont Vale, where we'll have basically the researchers of maternal health, and we will have OBGYNs, and our local birth center will be there. Me also speaking in a doula role about Black maternal health and what the research is saying what's going on here in Shawnee County. So Thursday, and both of these events must be registered because there is food involved. So please register if you have time. April 11th from 6 to 8, and April 13th from 10:30 to 1:30.
Oh, and then
the one on the 11th will not be streamed. And I don't know about that one, and I don't think the 13th will too. But I told somebody I would strive to do that more, because I don't want this to be the end. Just because it's Black Maternal Health Week, I want to continue to have this conversation on motherhood and support and access and all the things health, because, whew, child. So I don't want this to be the first time we get together and talk. I want to hopefully continue this conversation throughout the rest of the year and make it like an annual thing we do, even if it's not the same big group of people, but a few of us coming together and talking about Black maternal health, like what Black women health, whatever.
And then if you could bring like
Donations.
period products, diapers, things to support women, we're going to donate it to the Topeka Doula Project also. And if you go to my Facebook page, Tammy Ford Smith, hi, that's me. I have the flyer there, and it's also on our website, on the chapter's website, Facebook page, right?
And they're both on my Facebook page, Topeka Doula Project, Topeka Doula Project, on Facebook. Both of the events are pinned at the top. So.
Okay, can you please tell me the date, the time, and the location?
Yes. So April 11th, 6 to 8 p.m. Shoppers Kitchen. You're gonna have to Google that because I don't know the address off the top of my head.
It's on East 29th Street.
It's on, yeah, say
29th and Fremont.
Yeah.
Where the old Kmart is, Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Across the street from churches. And then
Gas station.
we'll cross the street from gas station.
Yeah.
Basketball will be on April 11th, and the one on April 13th will be from 10:30 to 1:30. There will be a break in between for lunch. So that's why you have to register, and that will be at Jose's Educational Center at Stormont Bell Health. So it'll be at the hospital.
So you can like park in the garage and then walk
Go
over.
in and register. Yes.
And you have to register for the 13th as well, and that's on.
You guys can stay as long as you want. Please, if you have any feedback for me as to how we can do these evenings a little more efficiently or interesting, come and see me. But, yeah, I was gonna let Carrie turn it off.
We're off.